The Nerd Academy podcast is released weekly at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, available on our website at www.thenerdacademypodcast.com and wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find the Nerd Academy podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. You can also help support the show by going to patreon.com/The Nerd Academy podcast, where every donation allows us to bring you more exciting content every week.
Good morning, class, and welcome back to the Nerd Academy podcast, your source for nerddom news and commentary. I am your host and superior webhead master, Jarod Bachman-Stubbs, and that introduction is very appropriate today because we are talking about your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, the new Spider-Man animated series on Disney+. Its first season has just wrapped up, and I am very excited to talk about it. I thought this show was a breath of fresh air. There's some stuff in there that I love. There's some stuff that leaves me with some mixed emotions, and there's some stuff I don't really care for as a Spider-Man fan, but really appreciate the execution of, and I'm very excited to get into the weeds about all of that. I am not alone. I am joined by friend of the show, somebody you see more often than not on Knights of the Nerd Republic, who is this time around joining us on the main show, as he is a Marvelite Padawan that I'm very excited to hear his thoughts on this show. Gonna jump right into it. One Eli from Star Wars in a Galaxy. Wait, Eli, what's up with the name?
I'm so excited. Let's do this. Andor Season 2 trailer. I'm so excited to talk about this. Let's do this. The revolution starts now. Let's go.
Death to all of them.
Wait, what's going on?
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
My live reaction watching the Andor Season 2 trailer.
Wait, so we're not talking about... So
no, we're talking about
Spider-Man. The Star Wars thing. Oh, okay. Anyway, let's talk Spider-Man. All right. Yeah. Yes, I am a... so I've been getting into Marvel and the MCU and stuff like that over the past few years. I am fully, just for my Marvel background, I've finished the Infinity Saga, seen most of the X-Men stuff and all of the Spider-Man films, minus I haven't seen No Way Home and I haven't seen Across, but everything else I've seen.
Okay. So you haven't hit No Way Home yet. Okay, I meant to ask you about the other day.
I've not hit No Way Home. I'm barely into the multiverse saga. I've seen the first third of WandaVision. But I know, like, there are certain projects like No Way Home where, like, I know what happens in No Way Home. It's not, like, a secret to me. Everybody was talking about, like, I know the villains are there. I know Toby and Andrew are there. Like, and there are a bunch of other ones, like, I pretty much know a lot, like, the main story arcs of things like Loki and Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. And, like, the more talked about ones I know about, like I could not tell you what happens in Echo, for example. I could not tell you what happened. I know who the main character is. I know some of the characters that appear in, like, I know one other character that appears in Echo. I don't know what happens in Echo. I don't know what happens in, I'm trying to think of another good example. This is the first MCU, anything really that I've gotten to watch as it comes out, which is very special.
Yeah, no, that's really exciting, and it's occurring to me. Have you seen the 2003 Daredevil?
I have not. No, I haven't.
So you are going to be in for this hilarious ride where Daredevil just keeps showing up and shit.
Oh well, so my introduction to Daredevil was because I've seen the TAS show. That's the other thing. I've seen the TAS show. So. And this, which is the funny thing, this was my introduction to Charlie Cox.
Yeah.
This was my introduction to Charlie Cox as Daredevil. I'm planning on, after I get through all the X-Men stuff, I'm planning on watching the 2015 show in preparation because I know I'm eventually going to hit Born Again when I get there.
Yeah, so, Born Again, and Matt does show up in No Way Home, but like,
yeah, I do know
you know enough about Daredevil for his appearance to not be jarring. Before we get any deeper in the weeds, real quick, a word from our sponsor at Sunday's Bloody Mary. You guys know the drill. Sunday's Bloody Mary has the most badass Bloody Mary accoutrement in the multiverse with their 3-time award-winning spicy Caesar mix, as well as their mild and traditional mixes. If the spice ain't for you, you can get your freak on and garnish that bad boy with their equally award-winning pickled dilly beans, okra and asparagus, and rim salt. This former bartender trusts only one Bloody Mary mix, and that is Sunday's. I am a firm believer that a Bloody Mary mix cannot even come close to rivaling a made-from-scratch Bloody Mary. That is, of course, except for Sunday's, which is the only one. It is the gold standard. So if you want to elevate your Bloody Mary game, go to sundaysbloodymary.com, use the code TEENAP at checkout, and support your favorite nerds while you do it and get 10% off. But all of that said, this show has kind of had like an interesting path behind the scenes. Eli, I don't know how familiar you are with like kind of like the road this show had to go on to like exist, because it was announced at D23 like
it was part of the drop. It was part of the drop. It was part of the big investor day. It was
it wasn't part of the investor day that we got all of the Star Wars stuff out of. Like that was like like the day we found out about like Ahsoka and Lando and shit like that.
It was a little bit earlier. I know. It
was after. Actually, it was after. It was sometime after. It was like in the middle of the summer. I don't remember the exact date, but when they announced it,
no, it wasn't after because D20. Because and the only reason I know this is because I've looked up the Disney Plus Day drop thing. That was in December of 2020. The Disney Plus Day drop was in December. I'm almost certain. I've seen that date too many times. And look, I'm not saying like I only have looked it up so many times because time during COVID was just like a lot of like what the hell is going on here. But but either way, I believe you. Yeah, I know it took 4 years. I was reading actually right before this. I was reading interviews with creators of the show. Mostly to see if I could glean anything about what the future looks like for the show. Obviously, besides the fact that we know that it's getting renewed for 2 more seasons. On the I'm gonna say a dirty word, and I'm sorry. On Collider, that's where that's who got access to interview them, and I'm not endorsing anything, but like anyway, point being. Jeff Trammell, who's the head writer of the show and the showrunner de facto, basically, was saying, this took 4 years to develop, just because of how animation works, but season 2 is not going to take anywhere near that long, basically.
So, so these are the things I wanted to hit. So it was announced in June of 2021.
21, okay.
Yeah, 21 was when it was announced, or 21 was when it began development, and then Disney Plus Day was when it was announced. So in 21, and when it was originally announced, it was announced as it was announced as Spider-Man Freshman Year.
Yeah, I know it had the name change,
and it was supposed to be in the MCU.
Yeah,
the original intent for this and all of those character designs that we saw. It was meant to take place in the universe. It was announced alongside like X-Men 97 and stuff like that. So as time went on, we were getting updates and like news about X-Men 97 and like What If and like some stuff about Marvel Zombies and like stuff that was kind of like, percolating, out there. And there was just crickets about Spider-Man Freshman Year, just fully crickets. And I started to get worried. And I know that a lot of there was a layoff that happened at Disney, and it was like a lot of the people who worked on what was still called Spider-Man Freshman Year. And I was like, oh shit, we're not getting the Spider-Man cartoon. I was like, okay, well, there goes that.
I give up.
Yeah, but then, news started to kind of ramp up again, and then they announced that, it wouldn't be on the sacred timeline, to use a parlance of, the MCU. But it would still be like in the MCU multiverse, and it would, kind of be a reimagining of Spider-Man's origins, basically saying, what if Norman Osborn was allowed to be in the MCU and also Peter was not pulled into Civil War? And my ears perked up. I was like, okay, that's interesting. That's fun. But I was a little miffed by the pivot, if only because I really wanted to see Peter in those like formative days as Spider-Man, just because in a weird like post origin story comic book media landscape, I want to know what this Peter's story is before he becomes like at the very least Avengers adjacent. And part of that was, was there an Uncle Ben? Who was Uncle Ben? What did this stuff look like? And, they were like, oh, Daredevil's going to be in the show. Interesting. Like, and I just wanted to know what this would look like. And then time goes on and they kind of pivot and it's like, okay, this is interesting. Norman Osborn, Otto's here, Matt's here, whatever. And I was interested. I was excited, and then like we see the art style for the show that I was, maybe we'll see about. And then we got the show, and then like I said, I think this show takes a lot of big swings that I think it executes well. But there are some swings that I'm not fully sold on. And I think the show starts off in a very declarative way. And I think the show very boldly calls its shot in a way that I admire, where they go, Uncle Ben is dead, and Peter is not Spider-Man yet. No bug bite, Ben's already dead. And from that moment on, I was like, okay, y'all are doing your own thing. And I am not I don't like to think of myself as like an adaptation purist. I think that changing things and altering like certain elements of origin stories and stuff like that, excuse me, have space to be interesting, and that storytellers should have space to kind of remix canon a little bit. Pardon me again. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Film adaptations are why Batman is synonymous with a grappling hook. But also, I think it's stupid if Joker killed Bruce Wayne's parents. Like those two things are equally true. So I was very, for lack of a better term, I kind of had okay, talk your shit, put your money where your mouth is. Like you were taking a very big swing here, by removing this kind of crucial element of the origin story, that like Uncle Ben's death and Peter becoming Spider-Man are these events that are so inextricably tied to each other that beginning the show with an unpowered Peter Parker and Ben Parker is already dead and gone, that's wild. And I was already like, okay, back it up. Back it, like do something with this. And Eli, I can't imagine, because I don't want to describe my like going into this show as like adversarial or standoffish. Like I was like, okay, like you're making decisions, support them. But obviously, and I talked about it on a previous episode of Nerd Academy with Armin from Comic Book Cast, and we don't have to, get into the weeds about it. You know, the whole is Spider-Man woke of it all. The answer is resoundingly yes. To anybody
by the end
who
of the
can
series,
read.
Hudson Thames. And by the end of the series, Hudson Thames, the answer is... Wait, why are we asking this question?
Yeah. Yeah. Buck wild. But yeah, I went into it a little cautious, I guess I can say.
Wait, give me a second.
How are you going into this? Obviously,
I don't know what just happened.
I too want to.
Sorry,
Okay, brief technical difficulty, but we're back. Eli, like you said, this is your first time getting to like experience a Marvel project as it's airing, as it's coming out. How are you coming into this show, woke Spider-Man notwithstanding?
Yeah, no, I think I will. That was a bit of a stumbling block. Just like a day or two before, I'm like, oh, I can watch this. I'm like, yeah, you know, people worked hard on this, and I'm excited for more Spider-Man stuff and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, I very quickly as I got into the MCU, I was like, okay, I want to figure out who my favorites are, and much love. I've appreciated both of these characters much more over time. Much love to these characters, but I thought you know, obviously as Tony is our entry into the MCU, I like Tony a lot, and I think RDJ is just maybe one of the greatest casting choices in the history of casting choices.
Yeah.
And I was a bit slower to catch on to Evans. Not Evans specifically, but Captain America really. To Cap really, but my liking of Cap has increased over time a lot as well. The birth one I really latched onto is I love Thor. Thor is a Jedi. I love Thor. Thor, like the minute I saw Thor 1, I know like people have some like people aren't crazy about Thor's 1 and 2. I really like both of them. Of course, love Ragnarok. Thor has a lot of those same character themes that I love about Star Wars, including with the mystical, including with the silly, including with the fantasy aspect of this. I'm in on Thor. And then as I got through more and more of this, I'm like, no, I like Thor, I like T'Challa, I like, you know, I like, there are a lot of heroes I like. I think I'm a Spider-Man guy. I really do. I think Spider-Man is my favorite Marvel superhero. And through watching the animated series, which was the first animated series, a 90s animated series I've watched now Spider-Man, X-Men, Fantastic Four. I just finished Iron Man. I'm now getting into, I've watched like literally 2 episodes of Hulk.
I remember liking the Hulk one, but Spider-Man was the only one I watched all of, and it's been so long since I've seen all of those.
Spider-Man TAS is great. The way I think about like the animated series right now is Spider-Man, I think, has the highest highs. No, but that's not what it is. Spider-Man is the most consistent. Is the most consistently good. X-Men has the highest highs.
For 100%.
And Fantastic Four is slightly less good than Spider-Man and X-Men, but still good. Iron Man was a slog to get through, especially season 1, because it's the same heroes against the same villains every episode. And it's just like, okay, come on now.
It checks out.
And then season 2 tries to pick up the slack, and it's kind of like a little bit too little too late. But either way. But ever since like
Have you watched Spectacular Spider-Man yet?
No, I haven't.
It's going to change your life.
Yeah. Either way, I was going into this like, look, I'm excited to have an MCU a Marvel show to look forward to. Coming off of Skeleton Crew, which Cards on the Table I liked a lot, but wasn't necessarily like it's actually near the lower tier of my Star Wars live action shows, just because it wasn't for me exactly. Like, characters were great, story was great, just didn't do like, didn't have the pizzazz I wanted it to. But you know, that happens sometimes.
Yeah.
But I was like, interesting. And one of the things that first drew me to the show, like, the first two episodes came out, one of the things I most appreciated about the show, and like I don't want to like do the like there was like a viral tweet. I don't know if you've seen this, but like person who's only watched The Boss Baby seeing the second movie. Oh, this reminds me of The Boss Baby.
Yeah.
I don't want to do this in that sort of way, but like there is a very Star Wars element of the show that I really like, which is, although it is in a separate universe, the universe, of course, resembles the MCU a lot.
Yeah.
And what I like about that is that it treats the sacred-ish timeline as sort of its roadmap, where you can see the events of Civil War happening. There's a mention of what happens in Legos. There's a mention of like all these different things. It makes sense that Iron Man would be there at the time and all that kind of stuff. Where there's certain inevitability of, like, in the background, where things are headed, which actually will tie into one of the things I'm most interested to see about like a potential second season. And with history, like there's been mentioning of like in the final episode when Norman is talking about why he's building this giant portal thingy.
Yeah, it's Thor shows up in New Mexico.
Thor shows up,
and the Chitauri in New
and
York,
the Chitauri invasion. Those are direct justifications for why he's doing this. And what I think is so interesting about that is that it's treating like Star Wars is treating these events that are happening in like I love it if they call this universe Earth 617. I think that'd be hilarious.
That'd be funny.
It's almost like 616, but not quite.
I also resent calling the MCU 616. I'm firmly team Amon Vellani on that, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, either way, but still, like one number off from whatever it is. So to have this like roadmap of like, oh, if this happens here and this happens there, other than the fact that Spider-Man wasn't on Team Iron Man in Civil War, everything's the same. Gives you this roadmap of why things are happening the way they are. Whereas where this happens all the time with Star Wars, where like the battles of Endor and Jakku are not directly featured in The Mandalorian, but you can see how they affect the events because, of course, the founding of the New Republic and the defeat of the Empire.
You cut your teeth on Star Wars, and that has left you with a like predilection for like a universe that acknowledges what is going on, and that like the story you're watching isn't the only story happening at any given moment.
Yeah, and there's like a because I know like one of the things I love about Marvel is that it like I actually do really love the ideas of like behind the multiverse. Again, I haven't gotten to the multiverse saga and how it of characters that people like don't have to be so like worried about canon if they don't want to. They can just tell a Spider-Man story and on like that has all the common archetypes, but doesn't have to like follow every other Spider-Man story. And they could just say, "Oh yeah, this is on Earth 62584," or whatever it is. They can do it. They can. There's a whole comic series, and of course the animated show, which I haven't gotten to see yet, but I'm very excited to watch when I get to it. What if? Like, it is all about what if you swap out X for Y? What if you swap out Y for Z? And ironically, I think, which I know everybody has talked about, like wanting so much for Star Wars a lot too. And it's interesting because we kind of got a little bit of that sort of with Rebuild the Galaxy, which kind of proved to me why it doesn't work as well for the Star Wars universe as it does for Marvel. But that's a larger conversation. I do want
to acknowledge, like, you bring something up that I think is really compelling. And a little peek behind the curtain. We were going to try to have Alden on for this episode as well, but he was busy, and we ended up having to do this on a Friday night, and he doesn't like to record two things in one day, and I respect that.
Yeah. And he also, I will acknowledge completely that the person I've talked to the most about this series is Alden. He and I texted like regularly following. Basically it was me texting him after every drop, like, dude, you won't fucking believe what happened.
Yeah, and you and I avoided each other because you knew we would have this conversation. We didn't want to like keep retreading conversations and stuff. But like for me, I think that it's so fascinating the place that canonicity is in right now. Because back in the day, back in the 2010s, like continuity was a weird thing to have to explain to a casual fan. I go back to this a lot because I think because I really do think it is emblematic of like how to gauge the general audience. Not that that's a thing that like I really care so much about. Like I'm a hardcore fan. I approach this as a hardcore fan. I don't care how the casual fan reacts to it so long as they're like actually, understanding what the thing is about. But Comic Book Cast, back when I was just a listener and not friends with those folks, it was in the wake of the Sony email leaks, and they were just talking about like what it would look like for Spider-Man to join the MCU at the time, and like whether or not like keeping Andrew Garfield or not, or recasting him or not, would affect how people would be able to like keep up with it. And Armin made a joke that even my little brother laughed at, who doesn't care about any of this shit, where he said, it does not matter how hard the studios try to get people to understand continuity and like what counts for what and what is connected to what. There will inevitably be, and this is a few months before Age of Ultron came out, he said, when Avengers Age of Ultron comes out, there's going to be a guy opening night wearing a Superman t-shirt who is going to be legitimately frustrated that Superman didn't show up. And that was true for the longest time. Like, I remember having to explain to people who really liked these movies, why Iron Man and Batman weren't best friends. And
we see this in other universes, of course. Wait, where's Rey in this movie at the premiere of
Rey
1?
People thinking Jen Erso was Rey, stuff like that. And stuff like, well, hey, why doesn't Wolverine show up in this? Well, and then having to explain like the rights to these characters and why any of these movies exist, because Marvel was was going bankrupt in the 90s, and they sold off all their fucking characters, and all they had left were the Avengers, so they made a movie about the Avengers, and now Hollywood has changed forever. Stuff like that I don't know, like, so much has changed. So much has changed. Into the Spider-Verse exposed general audiences to the concept of the multiverse and to the concept of canonicity. Like, within the text of those films, they are talking about canon. And that, I think, changed the landscape a lot and created an environment where you could make a show like this that in any other era of like tie-in cartoon would not have been possible. Like, there were eras where a superhero thing would come out and that character was super popular, and then a cartoon about that character would get greenlit that they would try to market, riding on the heels of the popular movie. Batman the Animated Series was like, that show exists because of Batman 89. Like, they have the same theme song, like like, they share that. And it's always been so fascinating to me that, like, I don't like, they went out of their way to go, this isn't a continuation of Michael Keaton Batman, but we're going to use some of the aesthetics. We're going to use like the same bat symbol. We're going to use the same theme music, stuff like that. But now we're at this point where Marvel can make a cartoon that is basically going, hey, here's all of this shit that happened in the MCU. The only difference is Spider-Man isn't there. He's over here doing his own thing. And that I find compelling. And it kind of brings me to some of the stuff that I found really jarring. Because, and I really, Eli, I really hope what I'm about to say doesn't come across as condescending, because I don't want to like little bro you as a new Marvel fan. I really don't. But like, again, back in my day, whenever like one of these characters would be adapted into live action, that came with a sense of like, as much of an oxymoron as this is, like temporary finality. That for the foreseeable future, this character is going to look like this. Stories told about this character are going to revolve around this. Yeah. Stuff like in The Amazing Spider-Man, when that movie first came out, every Spider-Man action figure looked like a fucking basketball and he had orange lenses. And TASM 2 came out, and it's like every version of Spider-Man has this incredible suit, but this weird logo where the legs are really long and it's kind of like too far down on his chest, like that, that was just kind of taken for granted as like, this is how we imagine this character kind of in perpetuity until the next one. What were you about to say?
My experience is with the reverse effect of that, which is, for example, I, of course, because I've watched Iron Man, its depiction of this character first, and then of course Iron Man 2 after that, and the Avengers and so on. I think when you say the name Nick Fury to me, I think of Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah.
Period. End of sentence. And then when I get to the end of Spider-Man the Animated Series Season 1, Nick Fury comes in. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? I was texting, I think, one of our friends. I forget who it was, but there's like the routine that John Mulaney does. It's one of the many great routines John Mulaney does, where he goes, I don't like these new Nazis, and you can quote me on that.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't like white Nick Fury, and you can quote me on that.
Yeah, I mean, no, there's stuff like that for sure. Like, yeah, like that defined like how people conceive of Nick Fury for a very long time. Like it's Sam Jackson, it's bald grizzled black dude, and not like generic action hero. Like Nick Fury was like this generic action hero who then became this like enigmatic kingmaker of the Marvel universe, and a lot of Sam Jackson's portrayal has a lot of that. And, they kind of squared that circle of how both of them coexist in the main timeline. But like, the best example I can give is like in 2014, 2015, when we found out Ben Affleck was playing Batman. And like every single conversation that revolved around Batman on the big screen came back to everything to do with Ben Affleck, everything to do with his suit, his characterization, what comes next for him. There wasn't like the place we're about to be now, where there are two on-screen canonical live-action Batman.
Yeah,
we will have Pattinson doing his thing in the Matt Reeves verse, and then we will have James Gunn's Batman.
Yeah,
like that. Like that was unheard of at the time. That was unheard of. Like that. Like again, it goes back to like, how is the audience going to understand? Like people will be upset that Superman isn't an Avenger. And to come to this show after years of, well, wait a minute, that's not what Spider-Man looked like in the last movie I saw him in. I'm sitting down to watch Avengers or to watch Captain America Civil War. And, I barely remember the what I watched on TV last night. And last time I remembered, Spider-Man was Andrew Garfield. And now he's this twink. There's at least this smaller twink. And what's going on there? And, like, that's what that shit was like. You know, people who just didn't understand the difference between a lot of these things. That's not the case anymore.
Yeah.
And what comes with that is when you have an adaptation of one of these characters, again, it's that like temporary finality. When Amazing Spider-Man 2 ends and Harry Osborn is the meth mouth goblin. And
Amazing Spider-Man 2, one of like five Marvel movies I'm trying to forget about.
And you know, we have meth mouth goblin, and Norman Osborn is dead by way of retroactive hyperplasia. And I will take my inner geekdom championship. And you know, like Norman Osborn is dead. Allegedly, his head is frozen in a jar. You know, Gwen Stacy is dead. The Rhino is here in a giant mech suit. Depending on the canonicity of certain deleted scenes, Richard Parker is alive, which we'll get there.
Ooh, Richard Parker's alive. Where have I heard that one before?
And you know, like, and I remember sitting there going, like, okay, like this is just like how people will conceptualize Spider-Man. In the same way that I'm sure a lot of people, you know, your age and younger, again, like I don't want to little bro you. It's just
no, go right ahead. Go
like,
right ahead.
But you came up while the MCU was like doing Spider-Man, like you know, so like it is relevant that I'm sure there are people your age and younger who like when they think of Peter Parker, they think of him like being Tony Stark's, like being mentored by Tony Stark. And you know, like that whole idea.
I will technically with you because I did watch. I'm pretty sure I have a record of this because Letterboxd and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure I watched. I forget what you call it. I'm pretty sure I watched Toby 1 before I watched Civil War. So my first perception of Spider-Man in film.
Oh, sure. I just mean generally.
So, I know generally
in pop culture.
About. Yeah.
There's this idea that Spider-Man has so much to do with Iron Man, when in reality, like if you really want to like go over it with a fine-tooth comb, Spider-Man in the comics, like he has so much more to do with the Fantastic Four than he does with Iron Man. Yeah. You know, like he was riding shotgun with the Fantastic Four. Like Spider-Man issue 1, he breaks into the Baxter building to like audition to be on the Four.
Yeah, and I know he and Johnny have a friendship, and
he and Johnny Storm are super close friends, and you know, like he takes Johnny's place when he dies, and you know, that's actually where the white and black suit he wears for a lot of this show, that's what it's inspired by, is the Future Foundation suit, which is such a clean fucking suit, and what it represents is beautiful, with, you know, Johnny seemingly dying at the time. But yeah, like it, like this show just kind of like blows my mind as like a longtime fan of cape shit. That like we've gotten to a point where not only can we do a cartoon that is adjacent to the MCU in a similar way that like Batman the Animated Series was adjacent to the Tim Burton film, and we can do it with this adjacency, but also reliably tell people this isn't in the same universe, despite the fact that the events of that universe are happening all around the fucking show.
Yeah.
That is buck wild to me. And it gives this show the liberty to take wild fucking swings that I was stunned by. Stuff like, you know, Richard Parker is alive in prison.
Yeah.
Which we know from, you know, interviews that Peter knows about. Peter knows his dad is alive and locked up.
Wait, he does?
Yeah, I believe, what's his name? The showrunner said that to Collider after the show wrapped up. Or maybe he said it to New Rockstars. I don't remember. Either way, he said, and maybe that will change. But like, like
probably
to
not,
our knowledge, to our knowledge, like Peter knows Richard is locked up.
I just assumed that was something that May was hiding from him.
You know, and that's crazy. I think, if you want to hear a theory from me, I think that we're going to find out that Richard Parker was framed for killing Ben Parker. or Mary Parker. I think Richards is locked up because he got framed for killing either Ben or Mary. I think it's either for him allegedly killing Ben or
and not
Mary,
like
and we'll
government espionage stuff like was in TESM 2 or
no.
whatever, I think.
Maybe that too. Maybe he was a secret fucking agent and they put him away and they did a he was a patsy, whatever.
I found that shit overcomplicated as shit. That was the one thing I will say. That was the one revelation from the finale that I was like, I'm not sure how I feel about this on its surface, but given how impressed I was, spoiler alert, impressed I was with literally every single other aspect of this show, I'll let them cook with this.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, like this is that, like, okay, like you can do that. You have the freedom to do that. You have the freedom to do, like, Uncle Ben is dead before the spider bite. You have the freedom to do shit like the time loop. You know, that is insane. This bootstrap paradox about how Peter gets his powers.
Yeah. Which I know you expressed to me some conflicting opinions. I will just say that my jaw dropped when I realized that was what was happening. I thought it was, at least for me, I thought it was, and very much, I will also explain this, which is like, even though I've fallen in love with Marvel in a lot of ways, there is still a slightly lesser attachment I have to it than Star Wars. Not that much, but like, I don't know all the lore. I don't know, like, I know a lot of it, but there's so goddamn much out there about the comics and the comics relevance, the video games, the video game relevance, and all that kind of stuff. I still haven't caught up on everything to freaking watch yet. And so very much there is at a certain point, like, there is like I hope it's a good story. I hope like people I like come in, there isn't like as much. There's quite a bit of it. Like, there isn't as much preciousness as I get with Star Wars, where it's like, okay, I want this to be true to what this stands for, and like, you know what I mean, like.
And we'll get into my thoughts on the time loop as its own thing. Like right now, I'm just like having this like weird existential crisis with canonicity, and I don't want to like I don't want to go all the way down into that rabbit hole quite yet. We will in a minute, but yeah, like again, I remember, and maybe this is unique to me, as like a teenager sitting down to like watch these movies as like phase 1 was happening and the DCEU was trying to happen, that like things would happen, things would be said, things would be depicted, and I would go, okay, this is going to define this character until the next time it happens, whenever that is. And
For the foreseeable
future. Again, like, and everybody makes fun of me, and we're not here to litigate Suicide Squad, but like, I don't hate that movie as much as a lot of people do. I'm not here to tell you it's good, actually, but I don't hate it as much as other people do. As somebody who likes Harley Quinn as a character a lot, like, that redefined that character for a long fucking time. Aesthetically, like, the color pink became more associated with Harley Quinn than I ever thought it really would. Like, that became a thing. Daddy's little monster. Like stuff like that. The baseball bat. It became synonymous with Harley in a way that like fully defined the character in the popular zeitgeist for so long and so hard that I think a shift into a more comic accurate post Joker Harley Quinn kind of took the general audience aback. That she wasn't kind of like the, sexed up crazy clown girl as like she had come to be known, because a lot of like casual fans who played the Arkham games thought of her as sexed up crazy clown girl. Suicide Squad, the movie, like doubles and triples down on sexed up crazy clown girl. And then a bunch of people saw that movie, and then a bunch of people bought, putting booty shorts at Hot Topic for Halloween, And then that was how the character was defined for like 5 years.
Yeah.
Like you shit like that. So I'm sitting here and I'm watching the show and I'm like, man, like years ago, like this would have been such a mind fuck for so many people. And it's just weird that like you can do this and I don't have to go, oh God, I wish they didn't do this because now so many people are going to think this, that, and this about the character. And it's like, well, they might, but like also there's like 18 other versions of Spider-Man right now.
Yeah.
You know, I'm being hyperbolic when I say 18, but we got the Yuri Lowenthal PlayStation games. We have Tom Holland. We have the Spider-Verse. We have this show.
And Garfield.
You know, yeah, we have Toby and Andrew, you know, like it's like there is so much of a plurality, but I mean just the ones that are happening all at the same time. That we have the games and the animated movies and this show and like the little kids show and Tom Holland is coming back for more movies. Like all of that is like all coexisting. And that in and of itself is just mind-boggling to me. Like I'm going to get off the topic here because I've been ranting about it for a long time and I apologize. But like I really feel like this show, even in the age of the multiverse, represents a sea change in like how audiences are capable of engaging with canonicity as a concept.
Yeah. There's also, I also think, you know, they're, not to like bring this back to Star Wars again, but like Star Wars, and I think Trek has done this too. There are other franchises that have done this too, but like I'm thinking of in the Star Wars lens, like, you know, where we have, and this is a little bit different because it is not the multiverse; it is just different ways of doing this. But like where we have, like TCW, like the Hayden Christensen, Anakin, and the Matt Lanter Anakin. And we understand that they're the same character, even though there are a lot of times where you have to remind yourself, just because of voice stuff, that they're the same character. James Arnold Taylor and Ewan McGregor, and, you know, whoever you want to talk about, that they recast in animation. But I think stuff like that paved the way for this.
Yeah, like you said, and like, and you're right. Like it's all like different shades of the same phenomena. It's just like mind-boggling. But also, before we jump down the time loop rabbit hole,
there's so many things I want to talk about before the time loop.
No, I want to say this supporting cast was really fun.
It was
really like this take on Tombstone.
So funny story about that. I saw all of TAS of the animated series before I'd seen this, way before, like finished it a while ago. I do remember watching the episode with centered around Robbie and Tombstone. I completely forgot his name was Lonnie Lincoln. I completely forgot that was his name. When you texted me about it, actually, like, oh, I'm interested to see they're bringing Lonnie back. I'm like, oh, this is just some character from the comics that I don't know, that's never appeared in animation. I'm sure it's happened. Whatever. We'll see what happens. And then, like 4 or 5, I figure it out before they get to like the naming him Tombstone, and I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. This is fantastic. And yeah, Tombstone as the sort of like Lonnie as the sort of like as this sort of like descent character, as like, you know, kind of as Peter is on this upward trend, Lonnie is on this downward trend.
Yeah.
Was a fascinating dynamic to show in the show, and I think is one of the things that really compelled me, is that like you, especially with Peter and Lonnie's relationship with Pearl, where, you know, you think at the very beginning, oh, is there going to be this rivalry between Peter and Lonnie? And then they end up being good friends, and you're like, okay, crisis averted.
Yeah.
But then Lonnie starts to, you know, slip, and realizing that Peter may have a chance to build a better relationship with Pearl, but it's at the expense of Lonnie just making horrible choices. Understandable choices, but horrible choices.
No, I really like the direction they took Lonnie here, even down to like, again, I didn't know, I was late to the show, especially they did the same thing with X-Men 97 where like I caught up like 2 weeks before the finale. And I was really interested because I didn't know Lonnie Lincoln was in the show until Anytime. And Alden makes like passing mention. He's like, there's this one character named Lonnie who like there's kind of like a racial profiling thing that happens.
Who Alden also when we were texting about it, he thought it was just a completely new character. So both of us just were completely in the dark about that.
Yeah, and I heard Lonnie and I was like, Tombstone? And
yes, Tombstone. The one they make the dramatic reveal about at the end of episode 5, which is fantastic.
Phenomenal. And I remember watching like the opening sequence and like while everybody kind of has their like theme color, like Nico's in that like cool teal and Harry's green because like all of the Osborn family wears green and I fucking love it.
This is another thing I will say, and when I get into my rant about this specific depiction, and I will get into the rant about this, but I just gotta say, the in season 2 or season 3, I don't care where or when it happens, but what I would give so much just to hear the smooth dulcet tones of Coleman Domingo say, Harry, I think it's time I rectify certain inequities.
It's so funny to me that you glom onto that line. Because
Michael made that meme.
It's because of Michael. It's because of Michael. It's because of our friends. Because that is not a line of dialogue that people meme about that movie. And it's funny. But like only our friend group will go out of our way to describe like taking care of business as rectifying certain inequities. And I love it. but then like they're going through all like the characters and they're like tone color. And Lonnie was that pale blue. And I went, oh, that's Tombstone.
Yeah.
Like this is clearly fucking Tombstone. No, I really liked it. And I really like this angle because like Tombstone is a sympathetic character, like they play with the idea a little bit in the animated series where like Robbie Robertson is like, I knew him before he was like this.
Yeah.
And like they do a little bit of that. Great episode, come down here and fight me like a man. Why don't you come up here and fight me like a spider? Also, Yuri Lowenthal is my current favorite Spider-Man, but like Chris Daniel Barnes, like he defined how that character sounds in my head for the longest time. Let it be a testament to Yuri Lowenthal's performance in those video games as to how much it took to get me to not read Peter Parker and Chris Daniels Barnes's voice. But anyway, but in Spider-Man 2, the game, Spider-Man, the first Spider-Man like PlayStation game, Tombstone is an enemy you encounter in the main story very briefly, and then there's a side mission where you follow up with him.
Okay, don't spoil too much of Spider-Man for me because I think I might be getting. I might be getting a PlayStation soon-ish because of stuff.
Heard. Then all I will say is we meet up again with Tombstone, and this isn't like really a major spoiler. Like none of this is like big plot stuff.
Yeah.
Game. But we catch up again with Tombstone in the second game after he served some time for the first game. And again, he's not a huge character in the first game. And in the second game, he's emblematic of like very important themes about beginning again and redemption and being better. But we catch up with Tombstone, and he's like working at Coney Island, and he's like gone straight. And Harry and Peter and MJ see him at Coney Island, and like Peter's like, "Oh fuck, it's Tombstone," and he's like, it's like his butthole clenches, and he's like getting ready for a fight, and he's like, "Oh, he's like, somebody crashed a go-kart, or somebody like flipped a go-kart." And Tombstone's over there like, "Oh shit, here, let me help you, because I have super strength. I can just pick up the go-kart and like put it back on the track." And so like Tombstone, Lonnie Lincoln as a sympathetic character is like kind of on the mind because of that. So I'm very interested to see where Lonnie goes moving forward, because he's clearly not given up street life. He's clearly not given up rolling with this gang. But like he's also clearly not being, at least immediately, turned into like a cold, callous, like career criminal either.
Yeah, no, I was surprised that there wasn't I could have sworn, asked me after, if you'd asked me after like 5 or 8, the last drops before the finale, I was like, oh, this is headed towards a confrontation between Peter and Lonnie.
Yeah.
That seems like where this is headed. And then it just doesn't. And I think the openness, the kind of like, I don't want to say neutrality, but like he's not directly, Tombstone is not directly, the 1/10 is not directly an enemy of Spider-Man quite yet.
No.
And that is a choice they're going to have to make if that happens. So it's very interesting for me to see like where that's going. They've left themselves a lot of interesting options. I'm fascinated to see where they go with Lonnie. The only disappointment I really have, and I understand why they had to do it for story purposes and stuff like that. Of course, they had to, and actually, I will say that this is a way of doing it so that I might actually get to have my cake and eat it too. Actually, I will say that, which is my disappointment when Big Donovan drove away at the beginning of 10 was immeasurable. Mostly because this was my introduction to Big Donovan. I did not know of his, like, I looked him up afterwards. I saw he was a Daredevil character, but like Leilani Barrett,
I even know that. I forgot about that completely. I completely forgot that Big Donovan existed in the comics. I'm not even gonna hold you.
But Leilani Barrett's voice acting of that character was maybe one of the best things out. Like, I could listen to him saying, "You with me, superstar?" All fucking day. Love that voice. Love how he used it. Like, God, love that shit. Absolutely. Like, maybe it was like in a weird Glup Shido sense, but like, I loved that. I loved his portrayal.
I mean, it's great, and again, like it's what opens up, like again, like different interpretations of Tombstone. Where like, Lonnie could very well be a character who, how do I put this? Who could like fill the power vacuum that Donovan leaves by, trying to be this guy who's like, like I represent and I protect these streets. Yeah. And, Spider-Man's doing his thing, but I got to take care of my people my own way. And could be adversarial with Spider-Man. But it is really compelling. Like, what does that power vacuum look like? How do you manifest how you feel this responsibility that you've now feel foisted upon you? What is different between them as leaders? And how much like will the longer Lonnie has this crown on his head, will he become as calloused and cruel as Donovan was? Will he become as cowardly as Donovan was? Like there's a lot of interesting ways to take
who
this.
He choose to be, and also how will he react to potential other forces in the space, which leads me to one of the weird things about this show, which was listed on Wikipedia for the freaking longest time, which was there was a cast member listed on Wikipedia for the longest friggin' time for this show that we get to the end of the show, doesn't appear, suddenly it's gone, and I'm trying to figure out what the hell happened. For the longest time, if you looked at Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man on Wikipedia, it listed another cast member transitioning from live action to animation. Mr. Vincent D'Onofrio.
That is right. They did say Kingpin was going to be in it. I wouldn't be surprised.
You get to the end.
Too.
Oh, I think that's probably what happened. Is they probably I think they like my answer for this was I was my reasoning was oh, they probably just intended to feature him in season 1 and then realized, oh, we don't have space for this and pushed him over and stuff or something like that.
I wouldn't be surprised if they did when this was supposed to be in the MCU. And there's this weird dark age between the Netflix Marvel and Disney Marvel. If they were going to go, oh yeah, one of Peter's first big adventures was going head to head with Kingpin.
With the Kingpin, yeah.
And it just never came up because why would it? We're fighting aliens.
Yeah.
I fought this scary fat guy who talks funny.
Yeah.
I don't understand why that would come up while you're fighting aliens.
And throughout the season, I was kept being oh, I'm sure the 1/10 is being supplied by the Kingpin, or Otto Octavius is being supplied some of his gear by the Kingpin. I kept expecting him to show up, and it was one of my only disappointments. I'm that's the Kingpin.
Yeah, I completely forgot. I completely forgot about Kingpin. Supposedly being a part of this. So funny. I completely forgot about that. I'm so glad you reminded me. Speaking of Kingpin, and characters adjacent to them, I loved the Daredevil appearance.
I loved it too.
That was so much fun.
Yeah, it was.
I love when heroes meet for the first time and they duke it out. I just love that shit.
The Peter Daredevil fight was very cool, and the even though
Peter and Daredevil think so too.
Yeah, the moment I knew he was appearing, but the moment we see him encapsulated by the moon, that shot, and I see in the subtitles, even though I don't note this yet, Blank Composer's Daredevil theme plays. I'm oh, people are gonna eat this up.
I did. I heard that. Do, 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 do. And I was flipping the table and shit. I was so excited.
Yeah, no, but yeah, and from what the little I've seen of Daredevil, from the animated series and now from this, I love the character, and I appreciated his appearance in the show. I'm very interested actually because I was trying to explain this to somebody, because this I feel is the phenomenon often of being a new Marvel fan, where it's just okay, so we have this Paul F. Tompkins role. Paul F. Tompkins is in the show playing one of Peter's supervisors at Oscorp, Bentley Whitman. Surely this must be a new character. Oh no, it's this obscure Spider-Man villain called the Wizard. Oh, cool.
I think.
Is
Wizard a Spider-Man villain?
Maybe it's a Fantastic Four villain. I don't know. Either way, point being. Oh, Peter has his classmate named Jean or Jean Foucault. Surely she can't be anything. Oh wait, she's this superhero named Finesse. Why did everybody have to be somebody same thing with Pearl Penguin, who I'd never heard of until I found out she was Wave. I'm okay,
yeah.
So everybody has this alternate future that I need to know about in order to get these references. Amadeus Cho, I knew because I knew who Braun was, but
yeah.
But I'm okay. Everybody has meaning. I need to look out for everything.
Oh yeah, this show absolutely did one of my favorite like things that like comic book media outside of like the actual comics does. I mean, obviously the comics do this too, but like I'm talking about adaptation, and it's like, yeah, and it's something that I understand why live action can't do it, because like if you commit to casting somebody as one of these characters, like you got to just live with it for the most part. But like because it's animation, you can get away with just going, okay, and here's Amadeus Cho, and here's Wizard, and here's and here's you know not Kurt Con. I can't. Is it Caitlin Connors? Carla Connors.
Yeah,
where they just
the minute she walked in,
room.
Yeah, the minute that woman walked in with the stump, I'm like, oh my god, they're doing this. Holy crap.
I was surprised. I thought we were going to get Lizard in the season. I was like, okay, there's going to be a Lizard episode.
Oh, I didn't know about her inclusion at all, and when I saw like, oh my god, they made Lizard a black one. That's interesting.
Yeah, which again, it's not woke, guys. It's not woke.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. This as I said this on Blue Sky when I was like posting like my thoughts about the season, which is like this show celebrates Black excellence in so many ways. This show centers itself around the Black, of course, because the head writer and showrunner of the show is a Black man. This is the representation that matters. There's great representation. There's a diverse group of Oscorp interns with Peter. We have Asha from Wakanda. We have Amadeus Cho. We have Jean, who we find out at the end of the season is finesse. We have Peter's best friend as Nico Minoru, who I don't know exactly like what. I know she is of some Southeast Asian heritage, but I don't know exactly what.
Yeah, I also know very little about her in the comics. She's one of those characters, and I'm like, oh yeah, you're a magic user, and that's all I know. Like I know about you is that you're magic. You're one of the magic people.
Yeah, I know very little about Nico, but like also very clearly queer. And like this show that is also another thing about the show that's so cool, which is that it feels like it feels like a 21st century Spider-Man. Like it feels like it feels like it's representative of the time in which it's made.
Yeah.
And I think that really matters. I think that's really important.
Well, I mean, on the topic of like, the concept of Black excellence, something that you and I are very well positioned to discuss.
Yes.
I will say, as somebody who like, these are one of those instances where I am able to, I can say, I appreciate the subtext while not having the lived experience to fully appreciate what it's about.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are a lot of, namely two who I'm a very big fan of, FD Signifier and Lil Bill on YouTube, or video essayists who I think are remarkable, who do incredible work. Both of them have like done these incredible, like almost historiographies of like different eras and like artistic movements within hip hop. Their work is incredible. If anybody wants like a full like chronology of the Kendrick Lamar versus Drake war that happened last year, FD Signifier has a video called "I'm What the Culture's Feeling" that I cannot recommend enough. It's fucking incredible. But both of them have done videos talking about like the concept of Black excellence and like this idea that like is kind of rooted in a lot of respectability politics. And again, it is not my place to like talk about this iteration of Norman Osborn being a, Jay-Z style, like black capitalist of like, don't rent from the block, buy the block kind of guy. But like, it's very clearly in there. And again, I'm not the guy to talk about why it's brilliant. because there's facets of it that I don't think I could articulate adequately because
obviously,
because obviously, but I found it really compelling and really bold, and it made like, and again, I'm not the kind of guy who's like, if you're gonna change the race of these characters, it needs to like be about something. Like I think that's fucking silly.
Carla Connors really wasn't, and
Carla Connors, like. And again, like, okay, cool, Black Norman Osborn. Like, I remember the internet going, oh, like, they finally found a reason to justify Norman Osborn having the most immaculate waves in all of comic books. Is because he's a black guy now and not like a white redhead who, like, I've always loved the joke that the cloth Green Goblin mask that has like the purple tabard like flapping off the back was actually accidentally a do-rag and it gave Norman waves. Stuff like that, which is all funny and it's great. But like, I love this angle of like, it's all about respectability with the Osborn family. It's all about status and respectability.
And just like Coleman Domingo, my God, what a performance! Like, absolutely, like, I'm very like, I haven't seen much. I don't think anything else that Domingo's done. He's become like a major name, and like, absolutely, I see why. Absolutely, I like this. One of my favorites in this show. It's him.
Absolutely.
It's the three I mentioned in my Blue Sky thread, which and I still maintain the three favorites voice acting wise in the show are him and Eugene Byrne as Lonnie, and Leilani Barrett as Big Donovan. But like,
I mean, and I have to say, like, just real quick on the topic of like favorite performance, like Hudson Thames, like, he stuck his foot directly in his mouth and he said some really dumb shit right before this show came out that I'm still baffled by, and I don't think I'll like.
I don't understand, and maybe
you could lock me in a
room
room
against him, but also
I was going to say you could lock me in a room with a printout of that Collider article and say, like, figure out what the fuck he's talking about, or tell us your deepest, darkest secret, and we won't let you out until you do one of those two things. I will come out with like 9-inch like fingernails and my beard down to my man titties and like hair down to my ass, and I will eventually tell you everything you want to know about me because I'll never be able to figure it out. I'll never be able to figure it out. That said, this kid, motherfucker, he plays a good Peter Parker. Like he's again, in terms of voice actors, he's not Barnes and he's not Josh Keaton and he's not Yuri Lowenthal. Like that's kind of the Spider-Man voice actor big three or the Peter Parker voice actor big three. That's really hard to top. But this kid turns in a hell of a performance. He may be a dumbass by virtue of either being an idiot for political reasons or an idiot because he's saying words he doesn't understand.
Yeah.
But the kid plays Peter and he gets it. Or he gets
I thought it was very good. Like my Peters and Spider-Man's like I always like kind of like I only have him and Barnes to work off of right now in animation, so I kind of blended them in with the live actions, and like the people I think really for me define Spider-Man right now are as Spider-Man it's Toby, and as Peter and kind of Spider-Man as well. My heart still goes to Tom. Like the number of times that that basically the entirety of the Civil War airport scene has stayed in my mind just because of Tom is immeasurable. Like the number of times I've just been walking around and think to myself, "You have a metal arm, dude! That is awesome."
Eli, again, I don't want to little bro you, but like after years of hoping Spider-Man would be in the MCU, watching that scene on opening night, I felt like a little kid. And I don't normally go to that place when it comes to like IP and fandom shit of like, it made me feel like a kid. Like that's not where I go. Like it's always been about like these stories affect me, and like what they're about has always been really meaningful to me, even as a kid.
Look, I'm going to say this as straight as you can. I'm going to say this as straight as you can, and this is not. I'm not using this like most people use it, and I resent how most people use it with when it comes to Star Wars and stuff. And I'm sure it's used with Marvel. I haven't seen as much of the discourse. Captain America: Civil War is maybe one of the greatest instances of playing with your action figure storytelling I've ever seen.
Yeah. No, Civil War, honestly, more than like the first two Avengers movies, like truly feels like a crossover comic. Like Infinity War and Endgame crank that up to 11. It's why I love Endgame so much. Is like it feels like I'm reading a crossover comic, and I fucking love it. But yeah, no, I just need to say is that little non sequitur. Like I just, man, I wish I could like telepathically give you those feelings of like what it felt like as somebody whose favorite superhero has always been Spider-Man, who's always been Peter Parker, who has always just loved everything this character represents, and like all of those themes, like sitting down opening night. Hey everyone, I wish Eli.
Look, guys, I'd love to have this. I'd love to have this conversation, but I really gotta impress Mr. Stark here.
I wish I could take you back to that trailer, because it was announced that Spider-Man would be in it, and the trailers were all hiding him, and it was the second trailer, and they went through all this stuff, and it had that like Captain America: Civil War release date, and then like it gets quiet, and then it cuts back to Tony just being like, all right, we don't have time for this. Underoos! And then him like, because like, and they cut it differently in the trailer. He does the Underoos, and then Peter flips out, whips the shield, lands holding it, and then goes, hey everyone, and then they show his lenses squinting, and then that was the end of the trailer. Is that they hit you with here's the suit, here's the webs, here's the sound effect for the webs, here's the acrobatics, here's how he will sound, and we are the first people to do emoting lenses on the mask. And like that just boom, 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 boom. After months of anticipation of is it real? Is it real? Is it real? Is it real? Like I could tell you exactly where I was. I could and I will get off this on sequitur. But like I was in my broadcast 1 class in my junior year of high school, watching that trailer with Devin Armel, former co-host of Nerd Academy Movie Club, and just frothing at the fucking mouth for that bit, and just losing my goddamn mind, like in that trailer. And he and I just watched the trailer over and over and over again, and we almost got in trouble because we almost had to turn in a project late that our teacher would have skinned me alive for. She fucking hated me. But like I just anyway, not the point. Yeah. But like the performances in this show are incredible. Like there's not a weak link in the bunch.
Yeah. Really, I think the performances are all good, if not great. My thing, I just think the writing for the show is just so superb.
Yeah.
I really just like there were so many real conversations, so many great, like I thought the episodes, even though they came out in bunches, like the end of every episode had this great like cliffhanger that didn't feel forced at all. It like there was always like it felt serialized in the best way, and like it made a lot of the moments, the aha moments, the wow moments feel earned. The moment, the moment where Norman comes into the apartment, which I actually I was gonna use as the background here, but I decided to do Peter and Strange instead. I deleted it. Whoops. Anyway, the moment where Norman comes in, mirroring Tony in Civil War, like, oh, I get this. This is what that's supposed to be. You have the image in your mind, playing with that sort of thing.
Peter with the DVD player, and
Norman figuring out that Peter is Spider-Man. Oh, it's you. oh, it's you, and all that kind of stuff in the when they have when he gets invited up to the lab and stuff like that. Stuff like the big one that really impressed me. I believe it was at the 4 or 5. I don't remember, but even though I knew it would be coming, the like when the unicorn is like after her failure with Spider-Man is like going back to the hideout. Okay, who's she? Who gave her this tech? Who gave her the shit? And like you see it, you see the glasses, and you see. I'm like, oh my god, they're doing this. They're doing. Oh my god, it's octopus. That was.
So I knew Otto. Okay, so I remember seeing Otto in the concept art, and are you ready for one of the most Jarod sentences you're going to hear all week?
Go right ahead, yeah.
So the week before the show came out, Roosevelt's did a Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man collection. And
I've been getting emails and I saw that, yeah.
And cool, because my thing was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like the show. So I wasn't like, I was like, like I looked at the stuff, but I didn't want to buy anything because like that's like one of the like very minor complaint. I don't even know if this is gonna make sense. I hate the very like singular branding that comes when a new project comes out. Like how it's not just Spider-Man and there's some stuff from the show in it. It has to be this version of Spider-Man exclusively in it. And there was a shirt, I think it was called like Allies and Enemies or Allies and Nemesis, like whatever the hell it was called. And it had Daredevil on it. It had a woman on it who had like a bandana and flowing hair. And I knew Daredevil was in it, but it's clearly not Finesse because she has short hair. Right? She has shorter hair in this.
Okay, yeah.
Or at the very least, it looked nothing like the woman on the shirt. And I think the woman was supposed to be Elektra, who never made it into the show. But so like, I'll put that up there with the Wilson Fisk stuff. Is that I think
I was gonna say they got Daredevil. They didn't get any of these characters in there.
Two other Daredevil characters who may have been supposed to be in the show who do not show up. Maybe it was the lady who like with the like energy arm thing.
What's the Tarantula?
Yeah, Tarantula. Maybe it was her. But Otto was on the shirt, and I remember going, "Oh, cool," and like moving on because like Otto Octavius is my favorite Spider-Man villain.
Oh yeah, I think he's.
Let me rephrase that. Let me rephrase that. Otto Octavius is one of my favorite comic book characters of all time.
I have like a just because this is going to be an Eli coded. This is going to be the most Eli coded sentence you've heard so far. I have a ongoing ranking list of Marvel heroes and villains as I go along. Just for me, like so I can see like, how does this character compare with this one? I think Ock is in my top 5 Marvel villains, I think.
And he should be. Doc Ock might be one of my favorite Spider-Men, as evidenced by this sticker. I had to figure out
Ock is 4 on my list behind Ego, Doom, and Thanos.
Valid. But yeah, so I was excited for it, but like I said, I didn't get anything. The only thing I have in my wish list from that collection is the hoodie that they did, and it's only because they have the red and blue suit on it, and I'm like, well, that's timeless Spider-Man. Like, I didn't want anything with this version of the Future Foundation suit on it, because what if I don't like the show? Anyway, I probably end up getting that shirt at some point, but that's not the point. Anyway, I remember knowing that Otto Octavius is in the show. I can't call him Doc Ock. I remember knowing that Otto Octavius is in this show, but I forgot about him. And when they came to him, bro, I looked like soups. I was fucking tweaking. And let me just say, another feather that this show needs to put in its cap. And I understand that just by virtue of the language used, and like the fact that, again, it does get kind of weird in terms of like the concepts of canon and canonicity and continuity. I understand that this isn't necessarily like a kid's cartoon. I think this is a great, like, you know, preteens cartoon.
Yeah.
You know,
I'd
like
say
you wouldn't,
teens, but yeah.
you know, but like this doesn't have to air on Adult Swim because it's so vulgar and violent.
No,
You know, like
no.
there's a, you know, there's some dams, some hells, the occasional ass, you know, like anybody who's killed, you know, it kind of happens like weirdly half off screen. Like there's that one guy who gets like brutally skewered by the scorpion.
Yeah.
But like he's like lifted off screen, but like is still like in this like, you know, kind of like heaving over position.
Yeah.
What this show does, and the amount of restraint this show has to just not do Doc Ock as a villain, to just have Otto be supplying weapons and for him to kind of like advance the plot, but he doesn't have any tentacles. And they go so far as to lock him up.
Yeah.
To further cement his rivalry with Norman Osborn. Like
that
is a lot of restraint. And he starts thinking about the tentacles, and we know he has the technology because he has it as like a countermeasure, as security.
Yeah.
But like, I think it's a very interesting and like very tactful use of this character.
It really is. It impressed me a lot. I will say one thing about
no, you're fine.
I texted. This is another disappointment of why I'm a little sad that Alden's not here. I texted Alden after I watched 9 and 10. There is a specific scene in 10 that I am so excited for you to watch. I actually haven't heard back from him about it. We're going to be doing a recording in a few days with him, and I'm really fully intending to ask him about the scene. Please tell me that the conversation that Norman has with Otto at the very beginning of 10 isn't the most Alden-coded shit you've ever seen.
As somebody who
Norman going to Otto's prison cell just to brag about how much better he is.
Listen, Spider-Man is my favorite superhero because I aspire to be as tenacious and good-humored and kind as Peter Parker. Otto Octavius is my favorite Marvel villain because I know my worst traits are a crippling inferiority complex and a penchant for being a very vindictive, very wrathful person who takes shit personally and hangs on to that shit for a long fucking time.
I was trying to say it without saying it.
And
yes, Otto and Norman, you could label things. Maybe, potentially.
So for you to be like, oh yeah, like it's supposed like Alden thing, and I'm like, yeah, and I love Otto because like the part of my brain that I don't like to like give into, that wants to like smash a window and go, the die is cast, Osborn. Like, yeah, I get it. As somebody who's been on the verge of screaming, the die is cast, Diaz.
Yes.
You know.
It is that scene, like.
But it's incredible. It's
like,
incredible
watching it and just like cackling out loud because it was so funny.
It's funny, but it's so good. And like, I love, and again, these are one of those things that like, it's existed in the comics, but it's like one of those, you know, again, it's the beauty of like what I was talking about earlier, you know, of like when an iteration of one of these characters is like shoved into a more accessible public venue than the comics, it has a potential to like glom onto the character as like a mainstay of their mythos. And like, because of the games, like, I think that there is a really high like popularity right now for making Otto Octavius and Norman Osborn like former friends, now rivals. Like that is a big part of the first PS4 game, is like the relationship between Otto Octavius and Norman Osborn. And I fucking love it. I love that angle of them being contemporaries who grow to fucking loathe each other. And seeing that here excited me because that's something I love. I love that it will always eventually turn into a rivalry between Dr. Octopus and Green Goblin, who are both fighting to see who the more worthy opponent of Spider-Man is. It's my favorite part of Superior Spider-Man. Is when the Green Goblin returns and he has a little sit down with Spider-Man, and he's like, and because of comic book bullshit, the Green Goblin doesn't know that Spider-Man is Peter Parker anymore, but he knows he knew at one point who Spider-Man was, but he doesn't know who it was. But don't ask any questions. Don't ask any fucking questions. Don't ask any fucking questions. We'll be here all night. But he sits him down and he's like, listen, I don't know who's behind that mask, but I'll bet my fucking life it's Otto Octavius in the head. And Otto, Spider-Man, at the time is like, how the fuck did you figure that out? And not in as many words, Norman goes, there's only one person on the planet who has little dick syndrome like you. And, he's like, there's only one person on the planet who like can be this easily goaded into making stupid fucking decisions despite being one of the smartest people on the planet. Being fucking Green Goblin about it. But that is then followed up by this amazing moment whenever Otto Octavius relinquishes control of the body back to Peter's
body.
Yeah. And he sacrifices himself to do it for a while. And when Peter dons the red and blue, the red and black is destroyed and he puts the red and blue back on and he goes out to confront Osborn, and Norman is like, oh, something, fucking like goading him, and he says, Otto. And I don't remember exactly what Green Goblin says, but Spider-Man says, it's big talk coming from a man carrying a purse. And the panel zooms all the way into the Green Goblin's face, and he goes, it's you.
It's you.
And Spider-Man just goes, the one and only, and then proceeds to beat the dog shit out of the Green Goblin. Just beats the piss out of him. But yeah, so shit like that. Like I love that rivalry between them. And another like Superior Spider-Man moment that again, like, yeah, I was watching my life play out in front of me. But the thing that I loved with that, which is why I glommed onto like the die as cast, is I saw people being like, oh, like that's a Caesar quote. Yes, it is. Superior Spider-Man also says that. Like that is a thing that Otto Octavius loves to say. The die is cast.
Yeah, that sounds like an Otto Octavius thing to say.
And and again, I love that it gets muffled because it's like after Norman's walking away. So it's back to it being covered up by him speaking through the glass and screaming through the glass. I love that because it's so subtle, in the same way. I can't say that. Never mind. I caught myself. Anybody watching this knows what I'm talking about. I don't even have to finish the sentence, but yeah, like I just love the way they handle Otto here. I love the way they do the Osborn Octavius rivalry. Yeah. It's just like I said, it's strong performances across the board.
Yeah. The other thing I was gonna say, which is actually I wanted to talk a little bit, leading into I assume a discussion you want to have at some point about this guy right over here. Our capping off of the season in the first and 10th episode. Since I watched his titular film, and then saw him in the last two Avengers films, and then of course he appears in Spider-Man. Love Stephen Strange, one of my favorite heroes in the MCU. And because of his live action appearances. No offense to Robin Atkin Downes in this series, who's been in many things. You Star Wars fans might know him as John Syndulla, prolific voice actor. My like I liked him as they got the writing on Stephen Strange down. I was just like, there's a part of me like I know they probably didn't have the budget for this or anything like that. Like, there's a part of me that really wanted him to be Cumberbatch.
He's doing a Cumberbatch impression, and that's not a dig on his performance, but like he's very clearly trying to hit like a lot of like Cumberbatch cues.
Yeah,
that like it feels a little bit like an impression. And again, it's not a bad performance. I buy this Strange.
Yeah, I buy Strange. It's just like I want it to be Cumberbatch.
Yeah, it's because if you're gonna have him speak like Cumberbatch Strange, with like the nice save, kid. Like, he's clearly trying to do that like refined gruffness of like let me ask you this one time, like, kind of inflection. But no, this was one of those things that I was like, man, y'all are taking big swings out the gate. Like in the opening moments of this show, Uncle Ben is dead before a spider bite, and Peter gets his powers because a spider crawled through a portal while Doctor Strange was fighting a symbiote in front of Midtown. And I was like, okay, that's wild, but sure. And then we get to the time loop.
We get to the time
and loop. I will say, if I have some mild critiques, I don't dislike the 10th episode. I think the action is incredible. I think the performances are great. I think the thing that I don't like is executed very well. But Norman Osborn's kind of out of left fucking field obsession with like cosmic travel, a little jarring and out of nowhere.
I don't think it was out of left field. I thought they were. I don't know. Yeah, I thought it made. I thought it made like sense within the character.
Within the character, that it's like this Machiavellian thing with like nobody's privy to. It's just that like Norman's focus on the world around him is so grounded that like for the 10th episode to kick off, and he's like, now we're gonna have our own blue portal in the sky. I was like,
I just see this, at least from my view, like very much like it being kind of the same motivation as the Spider-Man thing, which is like, look, the world's getting to be a more complicated place. These people, these superpowered people are popping up all over the place. We got Iron Man, we got Captain America, we got all that kind of stuff. I need a superhero of my own, so he figures out who
half of the Avengers are in the fucking wind.
Yeah. So I need a superhero of my own, so we go get Spider-Man to be on his side. And for me, the logical next step in that is this hammer crashed down our planet. We survived an alien fucking invasion a few years ago. I need some sort of defense against this. Like,
no, I get the motivate. I get the motivation. I do. I just think that, and again, like it's, it's comic books. Like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that this shit isn't the most convoluted nonsense ever written 99% of the fucking time. It just felt like kind of a weird hat on a hat of like, I started this internship program so that I could deduce who was helping Spider-Man. And now I've found Spider-Man, but also this internship project was so that I could have a bunch of people individually start setting up my new space portal. And while they were setting up my space portal, they were also starting to do all of the weird recombinant DNA with animals shit so that we can get the rest of the animal themed characters. Speaking of animal themed characters, we got hung up on. Oops, sorry.
I thought that was the animal. The testing on animals thing was something that happened once he figured out who's like. I didn't think that was connected to the interns at all.
No, like they weren't doing it, but part of it was all like, I need to figure out who's helping Spider-Man so I can figure out who's Spider-Man. Okay, now I have Spider-Man. Now I'm going to take Spider-Man's blood, and now I'm going to do shit with Spider-Man's blood. And also, all of Spider-Man's genius friends are building me a portal to space, but they don't know that one of them's building magnets and the other one's doing equations. And the other one's like, it feels like it's starting to feel like the way that we caricature Palpatine. A little bit, you know. It's like it's the cosmonaut variety hour clip. Palpatine wants to kill Padme. So he sends Count Dooku to go kill Padme. Count Dooku doesn't want to kill Padme, so he sends Jango Fett to go kill Padme. But Jango Fett doesn't want to kill Padme, so Jango Fett sends Zan Wessel to go kill Palpatine. And then Zan Wessel doesn't want to do it, so she sends a droid who sends Bugs to go kill Padme. Like, I don't want to fall back on the cosmonaut variety hour Palpatine bit. Like, it's very, I like that. I like Marcus. I think he's very funny. But like, you know, it's one of those kind of like hackneyed jokes about Star Wars at this point. And I don't want to like lean on that and like accuse the show of doing that too much with Norman. But like, truly, like, again, the plan is internship to deduce Spider-Man's identity to also open up a wormhole into space. Like, that is a little okay. Let's chill for a minute. And again, and that's not to say it's bad, and that's not to say that it's stupid. It just feels like a hat on a hat. But on the topic of the other animal-themed characters, we did kind of gloss over Scorpion, who I think is portrayed so well here. Scorpion, in my opinion, is one of those Spider-Man characters who, when you're adapting him or you're reimagining him, should be one of Peter's first, how the fuck am I supposed to do this fights. You know, he can handle Shocker. He can handle like Hydro Man or Molten Man, or, you know, like some of these other, like, you know, street level villains, even Vulture, you know, like getting at your, you know, like Electro, I think, is like the step above Scorpion, you know, in terms of like, how the fuck do I handle this type villains. Where like, I think Mac Gargan is like, you know, because you get a lot of versions of Mac. You know, you have that psychopathy, you have that sadism, you know, you have the fact that the Scorpion is the only natural predator to the spider in most environments. You know, that element of it, you know, how, you know, if you want to go, the Scorpion is faster and stronger than Spider-Man plus the tail, you know, you can do that. You can do what the animated series does, where they do that, but also the tail has a projectile. You could do Scorpion is just as strong and just as fast, but he's armored too, so he's tougher. Like, I love Scorpion as one of Peter's oh fuck villains. That as Peter advances in his career, you can come back to and show him mopping the floor with the Scorpion. And like, I think he's a great villain to kind of like set the baseline of like, this guy early in Peter's career could be a death sentence. 3 years into Peter's career, he's putting the Scorpion through a wall like it's nothing, you know. And I think it's like one of those good, like, showing Peter becomes somebody who is worthy of being an Avenger, who can like stand toe to toe with Thanos with help, you know, and but like be like meaningful in that type of arena. And this version of the Scorpion just has so much sauce. But I just wanted to touch on Scorpion real quick because we didn't talk about him.
I'm pretty like indifferent about Scorpion just because he's not one of the Spider-Man villains I think about that much. Just, I thought he was good, you know.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Like I said, I just like using him as like the first oh fuck villain. You know, like Peter has moments of like, oh man, this is getting kind of dicey, but like Scorpion almost killed him. Like,
oh yeah,
like Scorpion
did some damage.
Would have killed him had it not been for Osborn sending that, like, you know, proto glider. But anyway,
this is going to become the new Kid Fisto.
But So like again, like the 10th episode, like okay, the wormhole stuff, whatever. They introduce Strange, and I'm like, you know, and I see where it's going, and I'm like, is this like a fucking? And you see the spiders start crawling around, and I'm like, is this a bootstrap paradox? And it was. And here's my thing. And this is a take that frankly I wish more people could give. Not to like pat myself on the back just because like, nuance. I would like to resurrect it. I think there is such a thing as not liking an idea but appreciating its execution. It's something I've said multiple times talking about this. The
Mandalorian season 1 for me is like I don't think many of these ideas in Mandalorian season 1 were particularly like interesting to me, but goddamn is the sin executed well.
Yeah. And for me, that's how I felt about the time loop stuff. I didn't hate it. I don't like it. But I was like, this is really fun execution. And I like when time travel is done that way. It's Rebels, like it is the time loop of Ahsoka is always saved. It wasn't Ezra Bridger went back in time to save Ahsoka from Darth Vader.
Yeah. No.
It is she was always saved. We just didn't see the loop close. It is naughty franchise. Prisoner of Azkaban. I'm not shitting you as a kid. And again, like I try to avoid talking about this franchise and giving it its flowers because I did love it and that love has gone away. But
I did too.
But I also can't deny that it was good, like I'm not gonna lie. But like as a kid, I love that movie because I loved that like that thread and idea of like destiny and time travel, like being portrayed as time loops, that like the time travel was always part of the timeline. It wasn't, they went back and changed it. They took part in the series of events that then also showed them how things actually happened. It's the pebble being thrown at Harry's head. Like he always got hit in the head. We saw an axe come down. We just, as the audience, assumed that Buckbeak was executed. We didn't realize that they had shit like that. I like that concept a lot. Like that is a time travel plot device and trope I enjoy. I do not like it here because I do not like Peter Parker becoming Spider-Man having anything to do with destiny.
Oh, wait, Forrest, wait a second. Is this it? Wait, holy crap. My brain is doing this science meme right now, like putting these things together. Are you saying that this reminds you too much of Turn Off the Dark?
No, God, oh fucking.
And was I right about that?
Was poison Gen Alpha kid? No, it's not Turn Off the Dark.
That was not the era. That was Michael McCoy.
Fair. Fucking iPad kid. But no. I mean, there are other stories that play around with Peter being destined to be Spider-Man. There are.
That was the only one I was aware of.
I don't remember almost anything about Turn Off the Dark, so no. But like Amazing Spider-Man 2, Amazing Spider-Man 2 does it, and I don't like it there. I don't like the idea that Richard Parker engineered the spiders specifically to give Peter his powers. I hate that.
I did forget about that.
That I don't like that. I have a lot of mixed opinions about the spider totems in the comics, even though it turns into the Spider-Verse comic event, which I fucking love. I love the Spider-Verse comic. But like, and it all starts there, and it all starts with, and again, I love Morlun. I wish he was in the fucking Spider-Verse movies. He is such a fun, silly villain, silly, fun and silly in that like comic books a ridiculous way. He's terrifying as a character, but like, even though it's like things I love are downstream of this concept that I've always like grappled with, which is this idea that like in like the cosmology of the Marvel universe, like the web of destiny, actual term, that like all of these animal themed characters are like anthropomorphic totems of creation that are always destined to exist and are like a universal constant that have to be there. The spider, the rhino, the octopus, the scorpion, the hunter, like all of these things, the other famous animal, the goblin, both green and hob, have to be these universal constants. And granted, like also a lot of that has to do with this idea that the spider didn't give Peter powers because it was radioactive and mutated. It gave Peter his powers because it was magical. It had nothing to do with science fiction at all.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and like this one, like it's a destined to because of like how time works, but like there's no like the universe needs it. Like that's not like, I don't know. It feels a little bit different to me in this case.
No, and it is different. It is different. It is not identical to those things. And this is a conversation I had with all of it after I watched the episode. And that's kind of the crux for me though, is that it isn't magical predestination, but it's still
kind of close.
It's still a time loop that dictates Peter Parker has to become Spider-Man. None of this can happen unless Peter Parker is already Spider-Man. This like Peter gets bitten by a spider that comes out of this portal and becomes Spider-Man and saves New York. And in the process is grievously injured fighting the Scorpion. While Peter is incapacitated, his blood is drawn by Oscorp, and they use that blood to then start doing like radioactive,
testing.
Recombinant DNA with animals and shit testing. And then that same spider hops through a portal created by Doctor Strange to then fall down and bite Peter Parker and give him powers with Peter's own blood. I don't like that because for me, personally, the concept of the Parker luck, there is an episode named after it, is one of those things that I am very precious about when it comes to Peter. It is a concept that I think is integral to the DNA of this character. That every time something goes really, really well for Peter, something really shitty happens. And through that something shitty, Peter will obtain growth or revelation or prove to himself or others something he otherwise could not. I think there's a lot of Spider-Man fans who are obsessed with this idea that Peter Parker has to live a constantly miserable life to be true to the comics. And I don't agree with that. Peter Parker does not need to live a miserable, depressing life. Peter Parker needs to live a chaotic life. That is what makes it, again, it's that Parker luck. And for me, like the concept of the Parker luck is defined by how he gets his powers. He is in the right place at the right time, or the wrong place at the wrong time, depending on how you view it. Gets bit by this spider. His world is changed forever. He chooses to use those powers irresponsibly and selfishly, and it causes a chain of events that leads to the death of Uncle Ben. And with the death of Ben Parker, Peter begins to recognize that it is his responsibility to use these powers to help those around him, to be somebody who, while all these other heroes are fighting aliens and leaving the planet and fighting Hydra and fighting whatever the fuck, that it is on him to look out for the little guy. And that sets him on a path that he will gain tremendous strength from, tremendous, understanding of the world around him. He will grow to become a just paragon of heroism and meet so many people who will become like family to him, and lose as many people as well. Like, all of this is predicated, like, and again, like, part of it is that Peter Parker wouldn't trade it for anything because so much has come from it. And the stories about him wanting to trade it away always come back to him realizing it is who he is. And it's all because of chance. It's all because of luck. And I don't like the universe in any way, shape, or form dictating Peter Parker must become Spider-Man. And that's the thing that just doesn't work for me. It's something that I don't think will ever quite work for me. But to bring this conversation completely full circle, the fact that this is one of like 3, 4, or 5 active, very popular Spider-Man stories happening on screens, be it big television or video game, it's okay that this one is kind of buck wild.
Yeah.
It can be. It can be this. But execution is great. Phenomenal payoff. Phenomenal payoff. It's framed brilliantly. It should be dumb fucking luck. It should be dumb fucking luck that Peter Parker becomes the greatest hero that Earth has ever produced.
I understand that.
And that's my big thing with the time loop and why I dislike it a lot. I don't hate it for its execution. It is a concept that just does not work for me. And I will shut up now because I haven't shut up in the last like 5 minutes.
We're good. I understand where you're coming from. I think it's because of like there are so many versions that do that, like that I'd like a little bit, like for me, like I don't see that as integral to the character maybe as you do. I'm totally fine with this version existing, and like, obviously we have those other versions, the Toby and Andrew versions are happen that way, and we can assume Tom's version happens that way. I forget if we see. I don't think we see it in the 90s version how it happens, or do we? It's been a while.
What was that?
Do we see how how Peter becomes Spider-Man in the 90s animated series?
They do a brief flashback, and I think that Otto is present for it. Like, that was one of those other instances where they treat Otto as Peter's mentor that he has to like kind of grapple with the legacy of.
Yeah. All right, but either way, there are plenty of versions where, yeah. So I'm not, I guess, as bothered if this one isn't that. What I actually want to talk a little bit about, not to like completely change the subject or anything like that, but we get a lot of great teases. One of the things I think was very cool about this last episode is we get a lot of teases like the finesse reveal, which I didn't think we were gonna get, like the full Nico magic reveal. Like there are a few minor hints of it, and then of course I don't know if you saw, but like Jeff Trammell released like the day after 9 and 10 aired, 8 teas for season 2 onto Blue Sky
with Gwen and Ghost Spider, right?
Yep. Gwen Stacy, Ghost Spider.
I'm interested to see how they do that. Yeah. I am also, you know what? And guess what, guys? Guess what? I'm going to full screen myself. Guess what? Guess what, everybody? This little piggy loves his fucking slop. And I'm predictable as shit. Did I like the time loop shit? No. Do you know who stood up and clapped when he saw a little bit of black goo crawling across the fucking floor?
Oh, that's the other one.
This fucking guy.
Symbiote
Because
shit,
this
baby.
little piggy loves his black suit bullshit. I got like 3 fucking t-shirts with black suit Spider-Man on it because I love that shit.
Can I tell you, because I was just gonna ask, like, mostly because I'm selfish and I want to talk about this too, which is like, what do you want for season 2? Because I have some things that I'm interested to see for season 2.
If season 2 they do the black suit, and they lean into this idea that Peter knows that Richard Parker is locked up.
Oh.
And because here's the thing, because I was telling Taylor about it, because she has no interest in watching the show just because the art style really puts her off. And I get that. So she was just like, tell me what happens. And I'm like, okay, here you go. And when I explained it to her, she went, oh, it's like the Flash TV show. And I went, kind of, yeah. But the key difference is one of the big motivating forces for Barry Allen across adaptation is Barry Allen wants to exonerate his father, who he knows for a fact did not kill his mother, but can't prove it yet. At no point do they toy with the idea that Peter wants to exonerate his father, because I think they're making it not abundantly clear, because obviously we didn't know that Peter even knew until after the fact, outside of the text, that Peter knows he's in there. And if Peter is not interested in freeing his father or exonerating his father or in any way, shape, or form concerned about his father, that says to me
that he knows he's guilty.
That he thinks he's guilty. He thinks he's guilty.
Yeah.
Be it for the death of Uncle Ben or Mary Parker, whichever one.
Or espionage shit.
Again, I would not be surprised. Listen, man, at the rate this show is going, Richard and Mary Parker were agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and somebody was like, we need to quiet them down, or we need to get them out of play, be it Hydra or AIM or whatever the fuck. And they either killed Ben Parker or Mary Parker or both and framed it on Richard, and he's locked up, and May doesn't think he did it, but Peter is too young, and he just went, you know what, fuck you, Dad, and just accepted it as like just the gospel truth. Peter Parker gets the symbiote.
Yeah, I see where this is going.
And is like, I need to bring him to justice. I need to confront him. And I think that might be where it's going.
Or a slightly simple, if he believes, maybe there could be a twist where like Peter gets some sort of evidence that makes him believe, oh no, he's actually innocent of this. Gets the symbiote suit,
and that sets him down to the path of revenge.
Breaks him out.
Yeah.
And starts doing like some illegal shit in order to prove his father didn't do it.
Prove his father didn't do it, and it sets him on like a revenge-fueled like path to get the guys who did the frame job.
Yeah. Either or could work. My things are really just mostly character stuff. First of all, the big one for me, the one I instantly thought of after this show is, I want Hardy. I want Felicia Hardy in this show.
I don't. I mean, maybe Felicia, but not Black Cat.
I want Black Cat.
No, here's why, and I'm gonna give you a very boring real world answer as to why. Way too young. I like Black Cat works as, to me, Black Cat works best as something for Peter to have to like grapple with thematically Gwen Stacy has since died. He's on and off with Mary Jane. He isn't quite sure how much of his life should be designated to Peter and how much of his life should be designated to Spider-Man.
You think it's too early?
I think it's too early, and like Black Cat, in my opinion, serves a similar function. I'm about to say something so fucking insane that like it could only be said on this YouTube channel and on this podcast feed. Black Cat Felicia Hardy has a similar function as the stranger in The Acolyte.
Oh, I thought you were about to say Catwoman, and the only reason I was going to say that is because you've texted me that exact thing.
I mean, the whole idea of like here is somebody who like is a little bit more on the dark side than the hero. But the reason I make the Chimere Stranger comparison is like the idea, like the idea and like metaphor of seduction is very literal.
Yeah.
Like it is offering Peter the opportunity to kind of like live out his like more base, selfish,
daydreams,
being powerful fucking rules fantasies in the form of this like sexy bombshell who doesn't really give a fuck and is just kind of doing her own thing. And if doing her own thing meets fucking with Wilson Fisk, then it means fucking with Wilson Fisk. If doing her own thing means being on the wrong side of the law, then it means being on the wrong side of the law. It is like his the romance between Spider-Man and Black Cat, and it is not Peter Parker, it is Spider-Man and Black Cat, is the allure. And I'm using that word very literally because I think that's what Black Cat is meant to represent, is the allure of all of the power, none of the responsibility.
Yeah.
And while I think that's a theme that should always be explored with Spider-Man, especially in these, like, we're building out the mythos in our own way, I think Black Cat as a character is just a little too sexually charged.
Yeah. No,
for the age that we're telling this story at. Because again, she did not become a thing in the comics until he was in college. Where that is a little bit more acceptable and like to depict, and also like is less uncomfortable for Peter as a character to be seduced by. And yeah, like that again, that's just my take as like what that should represent.
I understand that. Yeah.
I love Black Cat. I don't think I need her in this story.
Yeah. Again, this is me learning a lot like the mythos and stuff like and how these like stories kind of work a bit better. The other one, and this is absolutely selfish. Look, I want to be real with everybody. I've discovered through my journey through Marvel, I have a type. If you are a menacing, selfish, mercenary type who likes to use raw weapons, none of this guns shit. Like, you use guns if you need to, of course, but like, you're talking about like knives and daggers and shit. And you have some weird gimmick. I'm going to fall for you. So, with that in mind, this character has failed me so many times on screen, and I know he can be better, and I want him so desperately to be better. Season 2, come on, give me Kraven the Hunter, please.
I like Kraven a lot. And I like him. I think he'd be a great addition to this show. I think the only, again, and this is just me spitballing and like responding to you. I would hope that they do not fall in to accidentally setting themselves up for comparison to other things. Granted, the MCU of it all. But the idea that we could be going into the second main chapter of this story where Peter is potentially getting the symbiote and it's going to take a darker turn and he's going to have this weird thing with responsibility and Kraven the Hunter is in it. Like it's already bringing a lot of comparisons to the second Spider-Man game to it.
Okay, so I didn't know that. So
yeah, Kraven's the main villain of 2. Like that's something that's very much not a spoiler.
Okay, I need to fucking get this game as soon as possible. Okay, never mind. Okay, yeah.
And he's
Let me tell you, the
first
Marvel film I saw in theaters, unfortunately, for me and everybody around me, the first Marvel film I've seen in theaters was Kraven the Hunter.
We didn't even.
And boy, was that a mistake.
That's brutal, buddy. I'm sorry.
I love this character so much. He is my Glup Shido of Marvel. I know he's not as minor.
I would say he is not a Glup Shido. He is one of the most influential villains. Like Kraven's Last Hunt is a lot of people's favorite Spider-Man stories.
I know. I just still when I I started to like this guy and I realized, oh my god, this is Marvel OGFS. Yeah, I have a type. Without the goof. But still by being cartoonishly masculine and Russian. They both have their gimmicks.
And also has his little ballerina shoes.
Yes. The final thing I wanted to talk about, and this one I actually do think it is probably there is a justification for. Again, this is not just me spitballing I think this character would be cool in here. But obviously, with the Star Wars comparisons, if we look along the timeline and we see where things are going, I don't need this to happen in Season 2. Frankly, what I'd love this to happen is at the end of Season 2, like the Richard Parker, like the Rick Finesse tease, like the symbiote tease at the end of the season. Here's what I need at the end of here's what I need at the end of season season 2. Somehow Peter or somebody in the series gets some sort of access or something like that, some sort of communication from the planet Xandar. The planet Xandar is under siege. And we see the face of the Mad Titan himself.
That is something I'm curious about, and I'm glad you brought it up. And we can kind of bring the conversation and start winding down from here.
Yeah.
I'm very curious to see how they, if they at all, acknowledge the idea of the end of Phase 3 happening.
That's where it's headed, supposedly. Thanos is out there.
Thanos is out there. I'm very curious to see if they end it that way, that it kind of builds to that.
Mr. Osborn, I don't feel so good.
Oh God.
I don't want to go like this, Mr. Osborn.
But yeah, very, very curious to see how that all shakes out.
Yeah.
But yeah, with all of that said, I think this show is very fun. I like it a lot. It is very much something that made me grapple with concepts of continuity and canon as an idea, which I didn't expect it to do. I didn't expect to have, like I said, to have my mini existential crisis about what does that even mean anymore. And not in a bad way, just in a isn't that something? But yeah, I really like this, and I'm very excited for more.
Name this episode, "What is Canon?" Spider-Man, don't hurt me.
I unfortunately give boring episode titles. But the first line of the episode description is Jarod has an existential crisis about continuity and also tries to unpack.
You're not like me who does freaking episodes of Andor and decides to cheekily title one of them "You Lauren Eyes."
Listen, that's great. Because my show goes directly onto YouTube and it gets most of its traction from YouTube, I have to unfortunately SEO it and just hope people click on it and go, oh, this show's funny. It's not as clinical as the title suggests. But yeah, I think that's all we got for you guys. Eli, closing thoughts, and where can the lovely people find you?
No, I love this show. I love this. I love the energy it brought. I love the all that kind of stuff. You can find me, however, mostly on Blue Sky now at ochifan327.bsky.social around here. All of us, at least a lot of us, I don't know, speak for everybody, but transitioning over to the Blue Ski. Who was saying, I was watching something where people consistently calling, oh, that was Bombadcast last night. Where Scotty and Jerry were consistently talking about something that Woodsy had sent them through the Blue Ski. Just over and over again, calling it Blue Ski. Anyway, you can find in a galaxy there at inagalaxypod.bsky.social. You can find us everywhere. We're talking Andor, ironically enough. Now, one time we've been topical throughout the show's 5-year existence. We're talking about Andor season 1 as the hype for Andor season 2 begins. We just put out, as of recording this episode a few hours ago, we just put out our episode on episode 8, Narkina 5. Nobody's Listening next week. And One Way Out with a certain podcaster friend of the show that I'm a little afraid to mention just because I know his reputation around these parts and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, what is it? Is it Diaz or J-Ro?
Yeah, it's Diaz.
Okay.
Diaz. We're having Diaz for One Way Out. We're having Diaz for One Way Out because I promised Jacob I wouldn't rant too much about my feelings about Andor Discourse except for 2 episodes. A, the first one, and B, the one that Alden's on. And then the big one that I'll leave to maybe we can talk about it a little bit more when you're plugging stuff at the end. But Epic Confrontation is going to be back soon in a big way. It's going to be. I feel like when I'm talking about Epic Confrontations, I feel like I turn into Donald a little bit now. Like it's going to be so great. Whoops! Oh my god! I just knocked my AirPods out. It's going to be so big. It's going to be so great, folks. It's going to be huge.
Well, speaking of those plugs, I will say the day this comes out, we will be recording that match. It is going to be a 4v4. I've been describing it as the Epic Confrontations equivalent to WWE Survivor Series War Games match. I'm very excited. It is myself playing on Goose's team from Triad of the Force. So Goose is team captain. You're muted.
Don't reveal any other members because I want it to be a.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, I am competing in it, and
Andy is the other one. Is the other team leader, and I guess we can say Alden's on their team.
Yeah,
so.
And Andy's on their, or Alden's on their team. So it's personal. So yeah, stay tuned for that. That'll be coming out shortly. Ionized Bastards, the final season is in full swing. We are recording this on the February 28th. So what are we on? 3rd episode of season 3 is out now. So go check that out. Shit got real fucking real.
Don't say anything. I haven't seen it yet. So
yeah. I'm not gonna say shit. Shit got real. Shit got real, and we're all scared. And you know, it was too good for too long, and now it's all fucked again. Other plugs. Pro and Noob is back. this coming week, we're going to be doing an episode with. So we recorded our first episode covering Cowboy Bebop, and we thought we were going to go ahead full tilt boogie on the Cowboy Bebop season. However, Scotty's schedule opened up, and we are going to be doing our episode talking about Neon Genesis Evangelion with Scotty Jarod. Because Scotty, on a whim,
Mitch and Scotty discussing anime. What could possibly go wrong?
Discussing Evangelion. What could possibly go wrong? Scotty binged all of NGE, the show and the rebuilds, and yeah, we want to talk to him about it because it's kind of like a fun crossover meeting of the worlds. We're talking Evangelion, which is firmly in Mitch's world. But it's one of the people from my side of the star or like the nerd pundit cinematic universe coming onto Mitch's channel.
We're in the end game now.
We're in the end game now. So we're going to be talking about Evangelion. The episode is going to be titled Neon Genesis Evangelion is Bomb Bad.
Of course it is.
Over on Pro and Noob. And then after that will be the Cowboy Bebop season. So stay tuned for that at the Mitch692 YouTube channel. Very excited for all of that. And one last thing. Very soon here, once schedules allow, Spencer and I are going to be recording the finale to Season 5 of the Versus series, Anakin Skywalker and Ahsoka Tano, Circa the Clone Wars versus Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati. Very excited to do our first team battle. We just got to get the schedules to align. Spencer is in the process of moving and setting up a new house. So he's got plenty on his plate, but we're very excited for that. Eli, before we end things, who you got? Snips and Sky Guy or the Wolves?
What era of TCW are we looking at? Just to know where Ahsoka's at this time.
End of season 5.
Oh, okay. That makes this interesting.
Like Ahsoka, like in the same way I go, like, we're gonna pluck this character from a moment. I'm like the day before the bomb at the Jedi Temple goes off.
Yeah. No, because I was like, if it's like season 1 Ahsoka, they screwed. If it's season 5 Ahsoka, then that makes this more interesting. Then I'd probably go with the Jedi at this point right now. I'd probably go with Snips and Sky Guy right now. But I think it's going to be close either way. But
time will tell. Like I said, with matchups like this, more often than not, I don't know how I'm going to fall until we discuss it. So
yeah,
stay
I won't
tuned
be
for that.
Satan and Shin, but like you could go either way. So,
you go either way. And if you want that, as well as a massive back catalog of the rest of our Star Wars Versus series, go ahead and subscribe to our Patreon at the $5 tier. Speaking of our patrons, thank you to Alexis Jonsk, aka Paco, as well as Ray Clausen, our $10 patrons. If you want to get shouted out at the end of every episode, be sure to subscribe at the $10 tier and support the show. And whatever tier, we appreciate the support. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. Like I said, you can find the Nerd Academy podcast and myself on all social media. You can find the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if you prefer to listen to it. I am Dark Jedi 2552 on everything. The Nerd Academy podcast is the Nerd Academy podcast or just TNAP. You will find it. But yeah, thank you all so very much for watching. We will be back weekly, hopefully, to cover Daredevil Born Again. Very excited for that. We have a news roundup for KNR coming out early next week as well, where we're going to be talking about all this confusing Kathleen Kennedy news and how to make sense of all of that shit. How we're all feeling about it, and also that really weird trailer for Andor. And also me trying to be nicer to Revenge of the Sith. But stay tuned for that. It'll be coming out on the feed and the channel as well very soon. But thank you all so very much for joining us. Thank you, Eli, for riding shotgun with me to talk about Spider-Man. And yeah, stay tuned. Check out Epic Confrontations, Ionized Bastards, Pro and Noob. Class dismissed.
Stop! Move away from the cookie jar!
And I just want to say, this match that's happening on Sunday, it's not about me. And it's not about Alden. It is about Goose, and it is about Andy. And I am here to support Goose in any way that I can. I think he's a swell guy. I think he's a good dude. He owns Roosevelt's. I've seen him in them multiple times. He's a great guy, great fashion sense, charming mustache. I love him. And I am a loyal and noble soldier in his cause in the Coaxium run. Sorry. But I just want to make sure everybody knows I'm getting my fucking lick back. And that's a fucking promise. Good night and good luck.